Hey guys, what's going on? It's Lionel, aka KO Hartz, and today what I want to do is give a roster breakdown of the characters that are in the new game Moonbreaker, the tabletop RPG collectible experience where Warhammer 40k meets Hearthstone. Now, I had a bit of time to play around with this last night, and it's actually really fun. If you can get yourself into the early test, absolutely do. If you create any content or anything like that, feel free to drop it on the Reddit, the subreddit r/Moonbreaker. Join the Discord as well. You can see the Discord link at the bottom of the page here. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the actual roster and to see how I feel about how certain units have done, as well as just for the cost and the abilities of specific characters. We're gonna check and see, you know, which ones kind of look to be standing out for now. Now, these rosters can go through balance changes and everything like that as time goes on, but for now, let's actually see what we can predict and what I've seen in the last 10 games, because I have seen some very specific staples that I want to talk about, and I think a lot of you who have played the game already are going to be like, oh yep, I get that. So perfect, let's get started. Okay guys, so this is the full roster that you can see here. This is the roster as it is right now. So with commanders included, we have about 6 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 6 is 36, so 37, 38, 39, 41 units so far. Now, new armies and balance changes will be introduced into the game as it's going on. So this is not the final roster by any means. But there are 3 cultures that they're actually divided into. So we're going to go through each one. We're going to give a breakdown of each one, and ones that, you know, we'll give a rating out of 5 about how I feel those specific units could fare in a deck. Now, there could be, you know, 5 out of 5 is if you can put it in. 1 is probably don't use it. Between 2 to 4, 2 to 3 is probably can work niche. Those of you that have played Warhammer games and those of you that even played Hearthstone know that there are certain cards, certain figures that work, that are just staples. They work all the time, and there are certain ones that don't work at all, and there are certain ones that will work if there is a specific deck or formula worked around that unit. So I've had a lot of experience with that over the last few years of my life, just the last few decades of my life being a gamer, and specifically when playing the game last night, I was able to see a lot of trends. Like losing wasn't bad, because and I did lose a lot while understanding it, because I was able to look at specific things and go, okay, I get why that works. I understand why that works, and that's an important aspect to get with these games. So what we'll do is, rather than just go through all, we'll split this into 3. So we'll start with the Smugglers culture as they're divided into. So there's 3 cultures: Smuggler, Methodori, and Cholek. So Smugglers are more the your standard space pirates, Guardians of the Galaxy kind of things. Methodori seem to be a how would you say, your alliance kind of race, you know, your stand-up-ish, your royals, your tech meets human kind of culture. And then you have the Cholek, which is more your kind of tech meets nature kind of thing, as well as nature itself, as you can see from this beautiful figure right here. So we'll start with the Smugglers first, and we'll go in alphabetical order. So first one we have here is the Axel Pyro. It's not bad at all. Like now we're rating figurine, perfect. Like all of these, I'm not even going to waste time rating the figurines. There's very few figurines that are less than a 5. They have thrown in everything into making these minis, and they're gorgeous. So I will not insult them by rating them anything lower than a 5. And the fact that I can just click here, that's the default scheme, and then go into like new scheme, and then be able to go like, oh yeah, okay, airbrush, let's just, and then just start suddenly painting. Now my PC's shite for this, so apologies, but I can start like painting like this. Amazing. But this is not a painting video. There's plenty of other streamers that are going to have painting streams and painting abilities. Go watch them and see how it is. I've never painted a day in my life. I barely stay in the lines right now as an adult. So figurine, 5 out of 5 as always. So the stats Okay, there's nothing there. And then we have our lore that we have here. So this is basically, I'm going to call it, what do they call it? It's blitz. I'm going to call it mana, because that's what everybody knows. So this is a 3 mana, and you'll get a specific amount of mana every turn, and you can save up to 3 mana. You can bank up to 3 mana. But let me tell you, if you can manage your mana very well, you can swarm the field, and there's very little your opponent can do about it. So right now, from what I'm seeing, the Zerg rush mentality, like rushing the board, having your figurines, especially with ranged units, is very, very prevalent. The board's not small, but the fact that you can pepper down melee foes prior to them getting to you means that airdropping melee foes into the fray is very, very useful, but don't expect that unit to live very long. So for this is a ranged figurine that can actually do a specific amount of do damage to all units in an area and burn them. And when it does, it actually moves itself away. So it's able to do a small AoE effect, and then when it does its actual fire, your unit will move back about a unit's length. So that's good for anti-positioning for yourselves if you've got a melee person there. And it inflicts burn, and burn will deal a damage to them the following turn. So it's actually very, very good. It keeps them, like, it's able to do tick damage, and there's not many units here that actually do tick damage. So that is actually very, very good. So now where it places, it's only got 6 health, so it's not going to live a long time by any means. Most things at ranged will do 2, most things at melee will do 3, and if they crit, forget about it. So it's not going to live very long, but in a pinch, the burn damage especially is quite useful. I would rate this probably on a 3. Yeah, I would say a hard 3. Situational, but it's not bad. There you go. Okay, next one up is Broken Vengeance. So 4 mana, absolutely fantastic figurine, as I said. Oh, and it's got a little, don't know why I zoomed in on the crotch there. Let's just pan that up. This is cool, and yes, this is completely editable as well. I mean, the whole thing is just gorgeous. The whole thing is just gorgeous. I get lost in these figurines sometimes. Look at the armor markings and shadings. Like, if you can paint better than the devs have default here, then fucking be my guest. Send me your stuff, because wow, this stuff is crazy. So, Broken Vengeance, 4 mana, so it is expensive. So you might be dropping it. If you're dropping it, be sure that it can do a hell of a lot of like decent attacks. Like you can get your most out of it, because you're gonna feel it when this thing actually dies. So 4 mana, ranged and revenged, immediately attacks any rival that actually damages it. So it's got 7 health, and its standard range attack is 3. So dropping it into the fray, if you're going to surround it with healers, and you're going to be able to, or you, when you actually start your round, you pick a healing skill to be able to throw onto this to keep it alive, or armor, whether you, if you're mitigating damage with Exterior. This is very, very good. This is very, very, very good. But be careful when using units that only see the majority of their power when they have to rely on your opponent triggering the effect. That's a very specific niche, because your opponent has to do it. So it's up to your opponent to give you the full advantage of this unit. And any opponent worth their salt is going to see this and then go, well, I'm just not going to trigger it. Now, yes, it might be very, very hard to ignore this because of the amount of damage it can actually output with its 3 damage right here. However, there are abilities that stun. You can push it away so that it's not able to get its full effect. You could push it closer into melee and then take it out there anyway. Or you could just push it behind cover or take cover. So there are many ways to deal with this. So having a unit that, yes, it's quite powerful and will retaliate on anyone that actually attacks it is very good. But do not rely on a unit too much that actually has to wait for your opponent to do that, because that's why in card games you get stuff like Death Rattle or Last Word, creatures that trigger abilities when they die, but the majority of those decks will trigger the ability themselves because the opponent's decks have silence or ignore or bounce back. So there's ways around it, and there's no way for you to trigger this. It's only rivals that can trigger this. Do you see what I mean? So you have to you have to be able to remember that. So for that, I'll give it a very soft 4. It's leaning more towards like 3.5. I'd say 3.5. Chuck and Co. Got a very what's that? Farah and Tor from Mortal Kombat. That's the one. I didn't want to start blabbering until I knew the name. Farah and Tor from Mortal Kombat 10. Very interesting character. Don't know why they weren't included in 11. Probably died in like some of the lore or something like that. But a very, very interesting unit. Now, 4 mana as well. Melee, and it has armor. And it's able to toss a unit and deal 1 damage to it. Now notice that this is toss a unit. So that can be your allies as well. So as long as you're prepared to let your allies take 1 damage, then you could end up giving them extra movement. Now movement is incredibly important in this game because there are things that can block line of sight, and because there is now a somewhat meta, I'm not going to call meta, but somewhat of what I've seen in the last 10 to 12 games I've played of melee units ducking, attacking, and then trying to move behind cover as much as possible, or putting lesser units in front to protect the range. So being able to maneuver enemies out of their proper positioning as well as maneuver your allies into it is great, because you could use this to like toss a very strong melee character and then have them like, you know, wreck their friends. So very very good unit. Now it is expensive so I would be careful with that, but for this, for 8 health, I mean, this thing's going to live. It's going to live, and it does 2 melee itself. So now it takes 4 to actually summon this, and then it takes 1 to actually activate this. And remember, they all have summoning sickness on their first turn, so this is very much a setup and plan. You want to hide this behind cover, move this to your commander or the other ally that needs to get thrown, and then throw it. But still, not a bad unit. Not a bad unit at all. I'd say depending on the deck as well, it's about a 3.5. Now you might think I'm fucking around here and I'm giving 3s to 4s, but no, that is a testament to how well the game has actually been balanced so far. Like there's very few stringent outliers. Very few units that I'm like, that's a 4, that's a 5. Most of them are actually around 3. There's not many like really bad ones. So this is good. This is really good, and it shows off the balance in the game. These devs know what they're doing, man. Okay, Crankbait. Now this is one that you've seen in the trailers, and this is one that you'll be able to see, that you'll see a lot. So 3 mana. It's a melee. It is fast, so it has increased movement range, which is very good. So it moves further, and it has the grappling chain, so you can move a unit towards Crankbait. That's your units, and that's enemy units. So it's basically Scorpions get over here. Absolutely fantastic, because you're ruining positioning. It moves farther, so it's able to get into the specific, a very specific range to be able to pull allies or enemies there, and then the allies, if you're pulling allies, can use their movement to complete the rest of your turn, and then they can get into better position. Now you might have to stick this into a bad position in order to maneuver allies or enemies into more favorable positions for you as the commander. However, with 9 health, and it's only got one damage for melee, so you are not meleeing with this. You're just not. There's like, unless it's to clinch a kill. Excuse me. Unless it's to specifically clinch a kill, you will not be attacking with this. Do not waste its health on trying to ping damage for a unit because you get scared. Do not do damage unnecessarily unless it's for the kill. Alright? For this, you're going to use all of its health to soak up damage while it maneuvers the rest of your team into position. So this, 5 out of 5. Could be a soft 5, hard 4, but it's very good, and I've very rarely seen a deck without it. Crosshair. That is a really cool scope. And see, you even got the little fire here coming out of the actual scope as well, and that lines up perfectly with the eye. These devs know what they're doing, man. STR1. See, if that was an 8, it could be straight, because that's how it wants you to aim, straight. Just my 2 cents. So, 4 mana. 4 mana drop, okay. Ranged. Fine as well. Perfect aim. Crosshair will always crit. Always crit if she was in play and her target didn't move last turn. So, if you have a deck with Crosshair in it and you happen to get skills that stun, or you happen to get the base ability that stuns as well, Crosshair does damage because she already does 3 damage with 8 health from ranged. So you're auto critting 6. So auto crit is ridiculously good. So yes, if her, and it's not if she didn't move, it's if her target didn't move. So if your opponent's creatures are stunned or they're locked down by your unit placement and they just didn't move, and you dropped Crosshair and you're able to get this attack off by moving her into position, or it's just a unit your opponent forgot about, that's it. The unit's gone. This is a 4 out of 5. It's a 4 out of 5. If you can build a deck around stun with it, or if you get any stun abilities, it's a 5 out of 5. But it's a strong 4 for now. Deadeye. You'll probably see this one a lot more than normal because this is a 2 mana drop, so it's a much more cheaper drop and is very, very cool. So ranged unit as well, and it gives ranged by releasing the Ozos is its actual ability that it's able to do for another mana. Give ranged allies plus 40 accuracy for 2 turns. So that's just map wide, I believe. I don't think it has a specific area. If it does, I apologize, but you're probably going to be grouping some of your units together. So plus 40 accuracy, especially with the amount of things that get in your way in this game, is very, very good. So I don't think it's an area effect, but if it is, if it's a specific area, just keep it there. You don't even use it to make its own attack. I mean, it's only 2 for 6 health. I mean, it's fine. You want to drop this for its ability. This is effectively a 3 drop. Give your other ranged allies plus 40 accuracy for 2 turns, not 1 turn, 2 turns. So it rolls over, so you don't have to activate it next turn, which means you're saving an extra mana. That already pays for itself. So in a ranged deck, this is a 5 out of 5. Always have this. Always. Jailbreak. Okay, so this is a more famous one. This was in the training mode, so most people would have seen this, and it's wielding its pieces of concrete that it escaped with, as well as this probably a mandible closer. It's a very, very cool aesthetic. All right, so Jailbreak is a melee, and it is 4 mana drop, and it has airborne. So this thing moves through over obstacles. So no matter what's in its way, Jailbreak doesn't care. You can pick up the unit and put it down wherever. Nothing blocks it. So it has direct line of sight movement, which is fantastic. Now, if the thing's big enough, then, forget about it. But if it's small, like, a small unit that's actually blocking like 50% accuracy, this thing just moves. And it has lockup, so touching rivals are immobilized. 2 melee damage, which is decent, 8 health, so it's a bit of a tank. So if you're combining this with a bit of healing or a bit of damage mitigation, it's very good. But what you really want to do is this lockup. If you're able to get opponent, remember that previous unit we were just talking about? Crosshair will always crit if she was in play and the opponent didn't move last turn. So you have Crosshair and you combine it with Jailbreak. You drop Jailbreak, you airdrop Jailbreak into melee of 2 or 3 units, the enemy units. Because they're touching, they're immobilized. So as long as Jailbreak can survive the turn, they can't move out of melee with him until they kill him, or they have some other tertiary ability like a base support. But if they can't move out of melee, that's it. And if they can't kill him, he's tanky. He's 8 health, and if with it like 1 mana for damage mitigation from Exterior, there's a very good chance that the enemy is not going to be moving. At which point Crosshair will get her crits and will proc and will crit for 6, which will take out any smaller units like Deadeye that your opponent has. Will even do, if you have an enemy Jailbreak, will do like 75%, or it's probably more, but 75% to 80 health, 6 out of 8. That's ridiculously good. So yes, keeping this as a support for something like Crosshairs, or support where you don't want your opponent moving as much, is very, very good. So I would say situational in decks, but a very hard 3. Very, very hard 3. Not bad to use at all. Rickety Backfire. This is another one that you'll probably see a lot of because 2 mana drop. So 2 mana, it's airborne, so it's able to move through obstacles as well. So exactly the same ability as Jailbreak, so able to fly over, around, and through. Do not underestimate how important unit placement is. It is very, very important. So definitely guess anything with airborne that you can use to your advantage is very, very good. Now, because it's a 2-drop, it's only got 5 health. So, you know, what are you going to do? But when it attacks, it has a 70% chance to also damage itself and all units in range. So, I mean, it does do 3, and it is ranged, and it can move over obstacles. So it can get itself in places it needs to be. But it acts more as a suicide bomber, or it acts more as a kamikaze pilot, because it's not a 50% or a 30% or a 20%. It's a 70% chance to damage itself for 3 and all units in range for 3. So the chances of you using this as just a straight melee unit, there's so many better options, so why would you want to? So anytime you're going to deploy this, if it's in your army, you're going to be in a position where you want this 70% to proc. So if you've peppered down all your opponent's ranged or melee units in an area 2-3 health each, and then you put this into specific range, proc the 70, and now you've got a 30 or you've got a 3 damage AoE bomb, which is very, very good. But the fact that it's a percentage chance, even 70% high, the fact that it's a percentage chance means that there's a chance it's not going to go off. And as most people will tell you in Hearthstone or Warhammer or any kind of game, relying on dice rolls and RNG is not something you want to build your strategy around. So this is a 2. Shrapnel. Absolutely lovely lady. Love the hair. So 4 mana to actually drop her. She's expensive, so she best do something. She has armor as well, so she's able to reduce all damage coming into her by 1, which is fantastic. And shotgun, so she can only attack units in ranged, but she targets all nearby units when attacking. So benefits highly from your opponents clustering their units together. Now there are base things that are able to make enemy units be sucked into a closer range together, which is good. There's no guarantee you're going to get that. It is quite common to pop up. I think in the 12 or so games I played, it popped up in about 8 of them as a selection. So you can build around her, and she has 7 health and she's got armor, so she reduces all damage by 1. So don't let this ranged tag fool you. You will be using Shrapnel as a melee unit. She will be up close. She will be doing as much damage as she can. Now, if you're able to get 2 units in her Shrapnel, perfect. If you're able to get any more than 2, 3, she's already paid for herself, because she's doing 2 damage, but she's doing a larger area. Now, she's not moving herself away from the damage, such as Axel Pyro was doing, which was a very similar thing as well. So 2 damage all in a line, but he was able to move himself away, and he was 3 drop. I would say Shrapnel's probably a better choice, because for 4 mana, she's strong. Now remember, you're not going to activate her this turn. You're going to activate her next turn. So she's going to have summoning sickness, which is a problem, because if your opponent's able to drop her and your opponent reads her, he's going to either spread a unit out or he's going to pepper her down. So very, very situational. But if you can get it off, fantastic. So hard 3. All I can give is a hard 3. If you can find ways, and there are ways, which I'll talk about in another video, if you can find ways to actually activate her this turn and play her in a get her going right now, 4 to 5. If it's a specific deck, which we'll talk about. Snarling. So this is that's your mouth, that's your cheeks, that's your eyes, that's your nose. Oh, there's like a Chinese dragons on this old dude's face. It's weird, and I love it. So Snarling, 3 mana, ranged. So a lot of the smugglers, there are a lot of ranged units, if that's what you're thinking. I've noticed it too. Don't worry, it's a thing. But 3 mana, ranged, and has the ability sticky mucus. Sorry, I have a bit of that myself. So sticky mucus. So when Snarling hits, it immobilizes the target for a turn. So when it hits, it's only doing 1 damage at ranged, and it has 7 health. So forget about this. You don't need to know about this at all. Block it out. If it hits, it immobilizes the target for 3. You see? So you're going to want to get this teamed up with Crosshair in a ranged deck with Deadeye to increase the accuracy, because you don't want to drop Snarling and have it miss, because then it's dead in the water, and then it's useless. But if you're able to drop Crosshair somewhere for protection, and then drop, this is 2, well, effectively 3, and then you're able to have Snarling somewhere ready to go, or you drop it and activate it to go on its summoning turn, and you immobilize, you've already got 1 damage because you hit, and now you have Crosshair doing 6 because you're going to immobilize next turn. So that unit, that 7 unit is like gone, and maybe you get another one proc off, and then you're able to kill an enemy Jailbreak. You're able to kill an enemy Broken Vengeance. That's 7 damage, 1 for the immobilized proc, plus 6 for the crit. So you're gonna be doing a decent amount of damage just by this going off, because it's very, very good if it procs. So in a ranged deck, if you're going to combine it with Crosshair and Deadeye, 5 to 5. Put it in, help it survive, and it'll do the work for you. Stitchy Stitchy McPatchy. First time I saw this, I'll say the same thing that I said the first time I saw this. Any relation to Buddy Boatface? I think that's where this naming came from. But very clever. I love the design as a manic medic kind of thing. So 2 drop or 2 mana drop. Perfect. Cheapest chips. It's melee. It's 1 melee, so forget about the melee. You're not going to be using it for the melee. But for 2 mana, restoring 3 health to a unit. Wonderful. Wonderful. Especially in melee decks, especially in decks where a unit needs to survive. Absolutely fantastic. Range decks, if you're playing them well enough and you're being very clever with your placement, you're probably not going to need this in a range deck. But for melee decks, perfect. So melee decks, 4. Anything where you need to keep a specific unit alive for your strategy, 4 to 5. Put it in. Everything else, 3. Switchback. Okay, so so remember I told you that there were I've had a couple of games, and while there are very specific units that are very, like, they're balanced, a lot of units are balanced, there are very specific ones which I've seen be staples in a lot of decks. This is it. So this is one of them. So Switchback is a 5-drop, so it's a big hulking boy. It is ranged, it is fast, so it has already increased movement speed, and for 2 mana. So effectively making it a 7 mana, or 7 mana if on a 5 mana to summon it, 2 mana the following turn to activate its ability, or it's an 8 mana if it's in a deck that can activate it this turn. So 5 drop, then 2 drop to activate, then a 1 mana from another unit, which I'll talk about in a bit, in order to make it attack the same turn, because there is a commander that does that in Zarya. So if you can get that down for 8, you can drop this and immediately do some severe damage, because it gains rapid fire and slow, and rapid fire means its attack procs twice, and it's able to slow the enemy unit for 2 turns, reducing their movement speed. This unit is good. It is just good. It is a 5 out of 5. It is crazy that it does not cost 6 mana. If it was 6 with ranged and fast, and you just took away the slow, it'd still be balanced. Like, they were probably thinking maybe it's too, maybe that's too expensive to devote so much mana to get this thing out and activated. If you can't activate this in its turn, let me tell you, if you're playing this on any other deck that doesn't activate this on the same turn it drops, it's a waste, because your enemy will focus this thing down mercilessly to get rid of it. Because if this rapid fire and slow procs, whatever unit looks at it funny is gone. it's just gone. And that's 6 damage to your commander in a turn as well at a 20 health. It's not something you want to be easing up. So people are already devoting an entire turn, a late game turn, to dropping this, activating it, and immediately peppering down one unit that you've had as clutch. And then we are 1 unit down on your turn and you have to focus this. But remember, your opponents already are also already got like 3 of the units. They could be running Crossfire and Deadeye with Shrapnel with this. So this is a 5 out of 5. This is a 5 out of 5 with a gold star. This is incredible. It should be 6 and the slow should be gone. And I don't even think it needs fast. I just don't. But yeah, put that in a deck. Put that in a range deck. Put that in your salad. It's just that good. Toxoid. This is the one they painted in the trailer. That is incredible. If you got a better graphics card than I do, you'll probably be able to see that. A little bit grosser than I can, but it's still incredible. So, Toxoid. 3 mana. Not bad. 1 melee, or it's a melee, and it does 1 damage. Don't even need to worry about it. 5 health. Probably not going to last long. But it has airborne, so it's able to move over obstacles, and it has poison. So after damaging any crew member, reduce it to 1 health. So it just goes to 1 health. Fantastic. So, but that's after damaging. So it damages and then drops into 1 health, and then restores 1 health at the end of its own turn. So it's able to take care of things like Smuggler or the bigger units, and it's not going to live very long. And it restores 1 health at the end of its own turn. So if you can protect this, you can do some very clever janky movements to take care of your opponent's big boys. So it's a 2 to a 3. It's a very situational unit. There's no need to build a deck around it, but it is good if you're running into a very specific problem that requires a very specific solution. If you get what I'm saying. And last, we have the captain. So we have Zax Jakar, voiced by Matthew Mercer, actually. So he is the captain. So he's one of the commanders that you're going to be using to control your army, and if you destroy him, you win the game. So his ability is back off. So when he hits a target with a ranged attack, that unit moves away. So just as attacks are able to move enemy units away, which is very good because you're controlling their space. So if I'm trying to get you to the edge of melee and you keep pushing me back, I have to devote more resources, maybe another turn, to trying to get into range. And that's actually quite difficult because Zax for 1 mana has Sleeper Mine, so he's able to drop a mine that takes a turn to arm, and then after that it's in an area, and if that goes off, you're taking damage. I believe it's 2 to 3 damage, which so you've got to maneuver around or devote your next turn to moving in and actually killing the mine before it arms, which is a controlling the field ability, which is very, very specific, and it's the fact that you're making your opponent choose. Take out my mine to control the field, which I want, which wastes resources of your turn, or don't. But now there's a very specific pathway taken away. A very specific pathway taken away. And then for 2 mana, you have Gravity Disc. So that moves units in an area together. So like a mini base assist ability. Now, you can actually use this to move yourself. So do your full movement, and then throw that kind of just where it affects you, and then it'll give you a little bunny hop in a specific situation. Absolutely great. I think one of the strongest commanders. No 5 out of 5 or any rating like that because you have to choose commander, but very, very good. For the specific deck you want ranged control for Zax. Okay, so that's all for the Smugglers. So I'm going to go through the rest of the roster in another video. We're going to do the Methadori next, and then we're going to do the Cholak. But for now, the Smugglers, I think, focused a lot on range as well as proccing just very strong ranged abilities. So I would say be prepared to see a lot of the Smugglers. I think like only 3 or 4 of them were melee, and even then their melee wasn't strong. It was you were using them for specific other abilities. So when it comes to this roster, if you're trying to make a range deck, I think Smugglers are the way to go. Cool. Thanks guys. See you in the next video. Bye bye.